All right, thanks to everyone for being here, for sticking it out through this whole day. It's been a long day, but it's been really awesome, so thank you all for staying. So my role at the end of this is to basically pull this all together. How are we going to do this as our revolution groups in Ohio? So besides being a climate activist, my other hat is I'm one of the admins for the Ohio Revolution, which is on social media on both Facebook and Twitter. The other admins, is Audra here still?
No, she's not.
Okay, Audra Sparks is one, Pooja Dada, and Jody McLean. So we're kind of proud. We're 4 women that have been running this organization since 2015. Yeah. But we've just been operating kind of on our own, and I get the feeling that there are maybe a dozen RREV affiliated groups around Ohio, and that we're all kind of operating in silos. I feel like the northeastern Ohio groups are maybe a little bit more talking to each other and more organized. They're certainly more organized than we are. That was one reason when Diane approached us with this summit. I jumped in because I want to see a stronger statewide structure and statewide organization of the RREV groups, because we need a structure to support running these progressive candidates that we're talking about, running these progressive issues, and winning on these issues. So we do have, so that gets us from transitioning from Bernie groups to RREV groups. So we will have our primary on St. Patrick's Day, and we will also help Bernie win the other states, going all the way to the nomination. But it doesn't stop there. So we need to also, as everyone here has been saying, win statewide, win locally, win in our counties. So that's where the RREV groups come in. We currently do have bi-weekly calls on Sundays, and we'll be sending out more information about that. Please feel free to join anytime. And we're hoping to form some statewide committees on various issues. But in terms of talking about our local RREV groups, we've been talking about what would be kind of a template structure. If you are running a local RREV group or in one, what's kind of the recommended way to operate? And so you could form, you should be holding monthly meetings, maybe even, I think in Northeast Ohio, some of them are holding weekly meetings, which is pretty amazing. For us in Central Ohio, if we can hold monthly meetings, that would be good. But we could also have committee work and committees working on, say, getting that move to amend, getting our local people to sign on to that. Those people could be meeting once a month, but in the off weeks, something like that. And we could be organizing around issues, around elections, recruiting people to run for central committee or precincts. Every region is going to be different, every city is going to be different, but we can kind of have a similar template that we're all operating off of. So another thing we talked about is regionally, like kind of having a regional, I guess, tactic or a regional strategy. So what's happening up in Northeast Ohio may not be as applicable to Central, may not be as applicable to the Cincinnati-Dayton area, but working with the RREV groups, kind of have a closer relationship with the ones that are in your region. Make sure you all are talking to each other, working together, identifying your issues, identifying your candidates in whatever area you happen to be in. And we'd also like to set a goal of having once a year a gathering. It doesn't have to be exactly like this with the big show in the morning and all the workshops, but we'd like to have some kind of gathering once a year, just to get all of the Ohio, our revolution groups, and all of the members and supporters together. And there are, I guess they said 20,000 RREV members and supporters in Ohio, so we can get those mailing lists and we can motivate, or I guess activate those people. So, and then throughout the year, working together, like if there is a statewide issue, for example, the anti-protest bill, Senate Bill 33 is going before the Ohio House this week. So that bill would make it, it would set huge felony penalties and huge fines for protesting a pipeline or any one of 80 instances of what they call critical infrastructure. It's basically really making protests, making it very difficult to protest. And we have a major petrochemical hub going in Ohio that no one's ever heard about. It's going up around the Belmont County area and around between Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. What it would, there would be a bunch of different facilities. What it would do is take fracking and take the methane from fracking and turn it into plastic. And the last thing we need is more fracking, and the last thing we need is more plastic. But this is being built out now, and nobody knows about it. And it is Ohio's, it is our KXL, our Keystone Pipeline, but for Ohio. And we need to have people down at the State House testifying about that, protesting this, and reaching out to other groups as well, because there are other groups, like I know Sierra Club's working this, and other groups are working this, but we all have to work together. And so having, I guess, committees that would be talking about this, how to reach out and how to make these things happen. Other examples are the legislation prohibiting women's rights to choose, which is extremely serious in Ohio, as you know. Attempts to take over school systems in several cities around Ohio. So there's a lot of issues, and we just need to be coordinating and working and communicating together to build our power to address these things. So we've talked about the local and state central committees. So having a statewide strategy, especially for the state central committee to run people. So one thing we've talked about is, we're having major, I guess, battles over central committee in the major cities of Columbus and the Cleveland area. But what about these rural areas where the Democratic Party hardly exists? If we had Bernie people in these counties, we could take those parties instantly. And then that would be a platform for us to use for the state party. But we have to work together to figure out, like, who do we have in these areas and how can we work on that? Also, redistricting that Jason mentioned happening in 2021. We will have new districts in 2022. These redistricting laws are pretty good. They set a strong criteria for how these districts will be drawn. They won't make it instantly Democratic all over the state, but it'll at least be more fair. We'll have a fighting chance in some of these districts. So that means we should be grooming candidates and recruiting candidates right now to be running in 2021, 2022. We need to be ready to go when those new districts come out. So how do we keep our momentum going through this time? So there are several different ways of communicating. I mentioned the bi-weekly calls. We have an Ohio for Bernie Facebook as well as an Ohio Revolution Facebook. We have an Ohio for Bernie Slack, which I think we should send out information for how to get on that Slack to everybody who's here. There's a Twitter, there's social media, there's an action network that provides a lot of ability to send out emails, to pull lists of supporters, things like that. So we need to grow our network. Our Revolution has a list of what they call 30-day openers, which is just anyone in Ohio who's opened an email in the last 30 days. That's a huge list of 20, 30,000 people. And so we can draw those by county or by congressional district. Networking with similar groups, and just continued local organizing on issues and around candidates. So if we can win in 2022 with some of our candidates, our movement candidates on the state, the congressional, the local level, our party seats, our central committees, we can really start to move the needle on progressive politics in Ohio. I'm going to bring out Al Sharif and let him say a few words too.